Hello and welcome to the program once again. I am Suren. Let us now continue with where we left off, with the ultimate future, observing it in a tantalizing and also psychical way as communicated some while ago. But still, current understanding is quite a consideration. Men and women, as they climb the ladder of their life in the flesh, or as it were suspended between earth and the heavens, they are indeed being observed between two mysteries, that of birth and death of death. They fear to look downwards, and they fear to look upwards. As a rule, all their attention must be given to each rung of the ladder, in which they seek to balance themselves. So even the most skillful among them is limited by his or her position upon the ladder, and find it difficult, almost impossible, to consider what comes before and what comes after the little space of years that make up his or her life in the physical world. The same parallel may be applied to myriads of other souls who have passed through the gates of death. Life for them is certainly on a far loftier and grander scale, but still they dwell between mysteries. However, they are observed being balanced between God, or the Supreme One, and their own world of appearances. So, many of the departed who endeavor to send messages descriptive of their surroundings, and all their life to living human beings. But they can only describe the actual experience and appearance of things about them, can only pass on from out of that limited personality which they spoke with them from the level of earth. If one attempts to describe the afterlife from the point of somebody who had been doing a certain type of, shall we say, professional work in a certain city all his or her life, his or her mind and spirit bounded by their work, and his or her own little personality, we would most probably give you what would appear to be a trite, as it was once upon a time said, and indeed materialistic, and a physical or psychical description of the hereafter. For, as a rule, he or she is only able to communicate with human beings while he or she is still in a very crude state of mental and spiritual development in their own level and using an earthian language with limitations, as you can guess. As it was previously considered, usually he or she is like a blind kitten or a puppy after birth. He or she speaks of what they cannot see when perception comes to him or her, when sight is bestowed on the eyes of his soul. He does not, so far as we can be aware, look towards the earth again. He probably feels his own mental impecuniosity. In truth, he has no power to express in words, which he must borrow from the earth minds, whether it is through electronic means, automatic writing, or psychic talking, which really is the amazing character of life after death. So, in a sense, he is silenced, and no echo comes from behind the dark, velvety curtain, which will even faintly convey the music of that other life. Yield to people the strange rhythm of the universe within a universe, a life within a life, and all lying as ships in harbor, or the planes in an airport within the infinite imagination of a most advanced being, or, if you prefer, God. The person in our illustration represents many millions, say, living upon this one planet Earth. He may be classified as the conventional worker, perhaps even quite efficient in all matters connected with his particular profession, but also limited by it and by his life of small amusements, by the lack of leisure, which prevents him from ever considering the ultimate purpose of life. Just like a horse, driven in harness and blinkers. So has he been driven from the cradle to the grave. His life might not have been very eventful. It contains a measure of sorrow and a measure of laughter. What becomes, therefore, of the symbol of this crowd, would you say? What becomes of the person we illustrated? It is far better for us in the study of the many mansions of the hereafter. First, to consider the future of the ordinary man and woman on your planet. Are they transformed in the twinkling of an eye, as it was supposedly said in your holy book? Do they become great seers, highly developed into both spiritually and mentally? Or do they still follow out the law of evolution as it is known by the known humanity? Think about it. However, if the person in our illustration is changed by death into a great seer or into a lofty spiritual genius, he is no longer the same person as he was. He cannot therefore be said to have survived death. But the reality is that he follows the slow path of evolution. He is born into the next world with all his limitations, with all his narrowness of outlook, with his affections and, alas, his dislikes. He is, in short, thoroughly a human. For such a person, a marvelous and lofty existence of a spiritual character is scarcely possible. He still is mentally in swaddling clothes, believe it or not. Therefore, he must be treated accordingly. Like a baby, if you like, being treated in your world. He must be carefully looked after and protected. He must meet with no sudden or violent change, for he is not of a sufficient spiritual and mental ripeness to be able to bear it. In fact, he belongs to a great multitude who must, as we describe it over here, dream back in order that they may later on go forward, proceed towards the ultimate goal, towards a state of spiritual vision, when they may enter the timeless state, and they may pass out of the great cosmic picture and enter within the mind of their Creator. But there is so much more to be done by him or her before, if ever, he or she can attain to that condition. Remember, he is still like an infant, needing playthings like a child, and therefore requiring about him a world of appearances, things that he can touch, feel, hold, he can relate to. So we, who are a little more advanced than he, watch by the gates of death, and we lead him and his associates, his kin, after certain but most definitely preparatory stages to the dream, which he will inhabit, living still according to his belief in the typical earth time. Imagine Jehovah's Witnesses. He bears with him the capacity for recalling the whole of his earth life. Familiar surroundings are his desperate need. Well, let's say that he does not want to live in a crystal city or some grandiose vision of eternity. He, in truth, craves only for the homely landscape he was accustomed to know. He will not find it here in the concrete sense, but he will find, if he so desires it, in the illusion or the reality dream. Now the wise can truly draw from their memory and from the great superconscious memory of the earth, the images of houses and streets, town plans, of country as known to these wayfarers, so recently come from the earth. The wise spirit beings think, and thereby make a creation, which becomes visible to our illustrated person or persons. So, in those early days after the passing, he or she is not cast into the complete emptiness, into a void. So stop worrying. As it was channeled, after he or she has slept in dimness, rested as in a chrysalis, while his etheric body is being shaped, he emerges like a butterfly, if you like, coming into the world formed for him by the concentrated thought of man of great spiritual discernment, the artists and architects, for whom we can find no better term than the wise or the creative life. So I shall end this mini talk for today until we meet again by the next episode. Be happy, keep smiling, and thank you.